Well, so for us in the X-Wing community this week, we got a little bit of more non-news news. It is news, but it's also news because we're in that kind of waiting period, just waiting because we don't know anything. Just waiting for news, waiting for new releases, whatever. It's that moment where we're watching everything with a disturbing level of detail. So what happened is Atomic Mass Games made this kind of really cool announcement about their partnering with the Grand Tournament series at the UK Games Expo. So we're seeing a lot of the Grand Tournament stuff pop out, a lot of the organized play stuff for the next year and change, still being encouraged, still supporting it, working with a lot of the local and regional partners. That's cool, and that's exactly the kind of follow-up I want to see from the announcement to change from the Worlds track to the Grand Tournament system. Now, I'm still a little bit iffy about that change overall, but since we got that, we now know Adepticon will be hosting a Worlds, which is awesome. It's still going to technically be a GT, but I'm sure there will be some kind of recognition as like the World Championship. And I do think there are enough local people and enough travelers that will still want to go to that, that's cool. That's exciting. So it's not just like it won't be at Adepticon at all. It will actually be a big deal at Adepticon, which is good. In addition to that, we're seeing all of these regional and local tournament organizers are also getting some support and partnering, so this may actually end up being a very successful launch. Lots of finger crossing. Anyway, but the news part is on this Facebook post that announced that yesterday at the time of this recording. There was a comment from Adam Smith who publicly asked for points, and then somebody listed under Atomic Mass Games, could be a community organizer, could be some leadership there, we don't know. They said there will not be a points update prior to the Grand Tournaments. Now, we know that Grand Tournaments start, I believe, on May 31st. So that's coming up really, really quickly. So we'd be looking at points updates in the next couple weeks. I still would have hoped for that because we're still close to a full month from that. Especially after Worlds, there are some kind of obvious things to nail down. And a lot of us are kind of expecting some points tweaks because we're used to getting them around now. A year ago, I believe we got a points update in early June, so we'll probably see something like that. I don't want to speculate on that because we may not. We basically always get small points adjustments around new releases. We did that around the Bombers. We got that around the Battle over Endor. And so the Battle over Endor points change was actually fairly recent. So it not only released the points for Battle over Endor, but knocked a couple things down. So it changed some loadout pieces for Han, and then changed some loadout adjustments to Resistance, First Order, Empire. A lot of stuff had kind of bumped around a bit. And we're still kind of seeing that shake out. And we've seen a ton of games played since then, but it's still relatively early, right? So that was the points adjustment we're going to get for the short term. But yeah, we'll see what happens. Another thing to go ahead and highlight here is that this could have just been by a community manager. We don't know. That could change. We also heard there wasn't going to be a Worlds, and now there is. TM. Yeah, so non-news news that is still something to report on and talk about, and still something to kind of think about. It is unfortunately on the level of disappointing news where we were expecting points. We had no reason to expect points aside from just expectation, but we were hoping for some points changes because especially a couple things kind of feel a little bit out of balance, right? So easy target is the arcs. If even one of those arcs went up to 5 points, that would be very healthy for the game on the whole, I think. And of course, seeing something for Scum and CIS, whatever. But I do think those are in a better spot than they have been and a better spot than we may realize. Because also, the same time I got this news, I also heard about believe it was in Australia, a pretty cool event where in a tournament, the 2 of the top 3 lists were Scum, which is awesome. So, and I'll probably talk about those later too. But yeah, and so again, this may change. So we may still get a change on this. That may just mean we get points in June, but that could also mean that we will not get points this year. That could happen. If we don't get releases this year, there may not be a point where they feel like they have to change points. I really hope that's not the case. All of the changes about the organized play for the year still feel like ramping up to do something else, because that's really exciting to like get the hype up, hype, to get people kind of like understanding what the OP is going to look like coming forward, plan out the year of what competitive events they're going to do, and then have kind of releases throughout that to look forward to. That would be an ideal scenario, is if we do have releases coming out in that time too. We may not, we might, we don't know. And that kind of is the takeaway here is we don't know, but it is there. We've seen this. we can go ahead and be pessimistic and go ahead and assume that we won't get points for the remainder of the year. I personally consider that unlikely, but it's a healthy expectation to keep so that we're not disappointed month to month when no points come out. But who knows? We may get points sooner, but I'm going to go ahead and assume that we won't, and we'll see. Anyway, that's that. I will be talking more about ships and list building and all that soon, but every time I sit down to do it, there's another kind of flare like this. And that's also kind of exciting by itself, that we've gotten so much actual news, non-news, but contradictory news, but a lot of news over the last couple of weeks, where like every single week there's been something for me to comment on like this, which is nice. It is nice to have that much to talk about, even if it's not like fundamentals of the game, which I would rather talk about, but we got it. Anyway, news is news. That the games are being thought about and talked about is good news. That we have competitive plans moving forward into next year is excellent news. Yeah, we'll see what more comes out. Anyway, keep your hopes up, and it's still a wonderful, wonderful game and community, so here we are. We'll wait it out. We'll see what happens.